You ready? All right. Good evening. This is a regular meeting of the Montclair Township Zoning Board of Adjustment for August 19th, 2025. No, 20th, okay. Yeah, I skipped a date there. Notice has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting a copy of the notice on the first floor of the municipal building and sending a copy to the Montclair Times, Star Ledger, and Herald News. This is a public hearing in which any member of the public is welcome to attend. The meeting agenda is available on the Montclair Township website, as is a link to the township's YouTube channel where the hearing can be viewed live or after the fact. The hearing is also being televised on Channel 34. So, I think our first item is roll call. Chair Harrison?
Here.
Vice Chair McCullough?
Here.
Mr. Caulfield told me that he was not going to be able to make it. Mr. Church?
Here.
Ms. Harris is excused. Mr. Moore? Mr. Simon?
Here.
Mr. Vieira is excused. Ms. Grant is excused. Mr. Griffith?
Here.
And Mr. Cruz?
Here.
Okay.
We have one hearing being postponed, 292 Orange Road, Keisha Owens. This application is being carried until our September 17th meeting. So if anyone is here for that application, that's when it will be heard. There'll be no further notice. We have the minutes of the July 23rd meeting. I just have a couple of changes. On page 2, line 44, I would delete the words "the adjacent," so it just reads "privacy from Brookdale Park." And then on page 3, condition 3, I had intended that just to be a thoughtful recommendation to them rather than a requirement, and unless other members of the board want to require those features or lack of features in the fence design, I'd just as soon delete that.
I think we discussed it, but I don't think we made it.
We discussed it, and,
Yeah.
but my thought at least was
Yeah.
as a suggestion to them to.
That's right, we discussed it
Rather
as a
than
suggestion.
requiring them.
Right.
Okay, so just deleting condition
Yep.
3. Anyone else with any changes to those minutes? If not, someone want to move approval with those changes?
Mr. Chairman, I move the approval of the minutes with the changes noted.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Then we have the resolution for the property at 2 Woodmont Road, the same change with deleting condition 3. Anyone else with any changes to that resolution?
Who's eligible to vote on that?
Mr. Harrison, Mr. McCullough, Mr. Church, and that's it.
Someone want to, of the eligible people, move that resolution
I'll move the resolution, Mr. Chairman,
with that change?
with that change, yes.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, and then we have the resolution for the property on Vera Place. I don't have any changes to that resolution. Does anyone else have any changes? If not, one of the, is there a second?
Second,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
First application is that of Yoel Briskman and Kathleene Donahoo for property at 1 Christopher Court. This is an application for a variance to permit the installation of a generator in the Christopher Street front yard. The property is in the R11 Family Zone District and is designated on the township tax maps as Lot 43.01 and Block 4,513. A variance is requested from Montclair Code Section 347-34B to permit a generator in the front yard between the dwelling and the street. Are taxes paid, and is the notice in order?
Yes, the taxes are paid and the notice is in order.
We have applicants. Come forward.
Okay, while they're getting seated, I'm going to ask Ms. Talley, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matters that we're going to hear tonight before the board?
Yes, I do.
Just state your name and position with the township.
Janice Talley, I'm the Director of Planning for Montclair Township, and I'm a licensed professional planner.
Thank you. And I would ask that the applicants, would you both raise your right hands? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
Would you give us your names and addresses?
Yoel Briskman, 1 Christopher Court.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are your microphones on? Yeah, the little green light must, there, that's better.
Sorry.
Okay. You want to tell us what you're doing and why?
Sure. We're looking to install a backup whole house generator powered by gas. The only yard where we have an ability to place such a device is, since we're a corner lot, and we don't really have any back space. The entire rear of our house is occupied by the garage up until the point where you get to the rear of the property. So the only place we can put it in is that yard that fronts onto Christopher Street. So it's sort of our side yard, but from point of view of you folks, it would serve as a front yard as well. And that's basically it. It's a whole house generator. It would sit, it's about 2 feet high. It would sit on a platform, and it has to be set 5 feet from the house because it's going to be sitting underneath a window. And we've located it in between the place where both the gas meter and the electrical go.
Yes, thank you. First of all, would you tell us, are there other areas specifically that you looked at where this generator could be located on your property, potentially?
So our property has a shared driveway. So on that side of the house, it would be, there are the air conditioning units, but there's nothing we could put in that wouldn't be basically up against the property line midway on the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the rear of the house, you basically, behind the house, you have a small alleyway, and then the garage, and then about 3 feet of space behind the garage, and then you're at the property line of the house on Christopher Street. So basically, there is no other place that physically you could put it, much less in compliance with avoiding property lines.
So the location that you're proposing is a location that you determined or that your contractor determined, or?
Contractor. We brought in somebody to tell us whether this would be feasible, and this was the spot that he chose based on the proximity to those, the gas and the electrical.
And this would be placed on a concrete platform of some sort?
Yes.
Is there currently a platform?
There is not. Where it would sit, there is currently a shrub. And we would have to remove the shrub, and then the platform would go there, right where the shrub is.
And would this sit further into the yard than the shrubbery that you currently have?
From what my measurements, it would basically extend out to the front of where that shrub goes. If you sort of look at where the branches come up, it would go out no further than that.
What about visibility to the street in terms of that location?
So the property has trees on the Christopher Street side, pines, and then it has arborvitae on the Christopher Court side, and that's outside of the fence. And then on the inside of the fence, there are cherry laurels. So it's planted pretty densely.
Mm-hmm.
There are places where, and I've sent some photographs, where you can sort of peer in and sort of potentially get a view of it, but it would be difficult. And in cases where even it's that, then it's mostly because, for example, we've been in the house a year, one of the cherry laurels had died. So there are places where we're hoping the foliage comes back and thickens out.
Do you anticipate that from the perspective of neighbors, that they would have any objection to the location of this generator? Just in terms of visibility?
I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody who's got a clear view of it. We've spoken to the person across the street on Chistopher Court. He's aware of it. He doesn't have a problem. And I don't think there's any visibility from the Chistopher Street side, because you'd have to look across the street, up a berm, through the trees and cherry laurels. It's a pretty big distance. And then the house next to us, that's on Christopher Street, they don't have a clear view of it at all.
What about the noise from the generator itself when it's activated? What do you anticipate?
So, first of all, what we've been instructed is that you have to run it, the test period, at fixed times during the day when the test period is run, and we're fine with that. What I've been told is that that particular model generator generates about 67 decibels. And so it sounds like these are quieter than what I'd heard of in the past. 67, my search online indicated that that's less than, not just less than a lawnmower, but less than a vacuum cleaner, comparable, according to the AI search, to a dishwasher.
So you've not heard the sound of, I mean, you've not gone to other places to hear what the sound of a generator is like?
I have on occasion heard other
Okay.
people's generators. My understanding is that the technology has improved.
And are there other generators in your neighborhood, as far as you know?
Not that I'm aware of. I do believe at least one of our neighbors would like to put one in. We can talk to them about it, but I don't know what their situation is.
So I noticed that the Historical Preservation Commission looked at this project, and they didn't really have objection, except for the fact that they proposed that there be a 4-foot tall fence constructed around it of natural materials. Would you speak to that in terms of how you understand that, and what are your feelings about that? Is that something that you want to do, or willing to do, or have concerns about?
We would have concerns about doing that, largely because, so anything that surrounds the generator has to be set 2 feet away from it on all sides. So it would extend quite a bit into our yard. And it wasn't clear to me whether their concern was primarily about how it would look or with the issue of noise. So I'm not quite sure what problem they were trying to solve. 4 feet is high to shield the generator. It would put it well above the height, and it would, in my judgment, not look very good. So we'd be reluctant to do something. I'd prefer to solve the problem, if there is one, by additional plantings, either around the perimeter of the yard, or if we need to have something adjacent to the generator, I'd rather have it something like plantings or a hedge or something to shield the view, and not at a height of 4 feet.
So how close could you put plantings around a generator?
My understanding is that anything has to be 2 feet
So
away from the
whether it's a
generator.
fence or it's a planting of some sort to shield.
Yes.
So you'd be going further into the yard regardless. Either way, you're going further into the yard.
Unless we solve it by putting more plantings around the perimeter.
Meaning,
yard itself.
Meaning around, yeah, okay. I guess primarily on Christopher Court is what you're talking about, primarily?
Correct.
And then you're saying then you wouldn't necessarily need to have any plantings around the generator itself?
Not to make it less visible, certainly.
Did the commission speak about the kind of materials for a fence?
It just said a natural fence. My understanding of that, I'm not an expert, is that that means wood or stone of some kind.
I see. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. No questions.
Mr. Cruz?
Yes, hello, good evening. So when you mentioned that you had spoken to your neighbors on Christopher Court, you were referring to the ones across the street on 2 and 4 Christopher Court?
Yes.
And you said that their thoughts on the project were,
So we didn't speak to 4. We've only spoken to 2.
okay.
And 3 next door to us.
And what were their sentiments?
They're fine.
Okay. And you also mentioned that, since it looks like it's about 23 feet away from Christopher Court, that you wouldn't be against putting, shrubs or bushes along Christopher Court to...
Not at all. Actually, there's a tree there that we have to take down, and so I would like to replace it with something to provide more screening where that used to be.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Yes. Who's the manufacturer of this generator?
It's Generac.
Generac. And it's only used for emergencies, right? It doesn't, and it has to go on how many times to charge itself?
My understanding is that it has to be it has to
Test itself, right.
for 10 minutes once a week.
Yeah, I know they go on at least once a week. You're willing to, did they tell you how high the platform will be?
They did not give me a measurement on that. no.
Okay. But it'll be off the ground. It won't get on soft ground, okay?
Correct.
And when these things are servicing themselves, they are noisy. I have one across the street from me, and I hear it every Monday when I'm around at 1 o'clock, and it goes on for a half hour to 45 minutes to generate itself. Now they're further away. Their Generac is further away from the house than yours will be, though. They're across the driveway in a garage, by a garage. So, but you're saying that this one that you purchased is modern, or more current
Yes.
model.
latest.
So they've,
What we were told was that it
All
has
right.
to run for 10 minutes.
okay, well, this guy runs his for a half hour. Okay, I'm not concerned, but I think your idea of shrubbery is the best idea, rather than a fence. Because that whole area is shrubbery. Everybody seems to have a lot of shrubbery around there, so I think it would just blend into the atmosphere. Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. You said it was located under a window?
It's in front of a window, it has to be 5 feet away from any window.
Do you know the height of the window?
It's a first floor window. I didn't measure it. It'll be well below the window. The window starts maybe at about 4 feet up, maybe 5 feet up.
So if you had to put the fence, you basically be looking at the back of the fence from the house, if you were looking at that window?
I actually don't know whether the requirement would include fence running along the side facing the house.
No, but even on the far side, you basically be looking at the inside.
We'd be looking at a 4-foot fence out of the window, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a generator. If you want to know who has a generator in your neighborhood, next time the power goes out, go outside and listen, and you'll know who has one. Guy across the street from me has a generator. My generator has to be exercised once a week for 30 minutes. Wish I had yours. It's a little noisy. We did have one time when the power was out for 2 days, where I had this generator, the carbon monoxide alarms went off in the basement of the house, and everybody had to evacuate. And the winds were blowing the exhaust against the side of the house, and the carbon monoxide was low, and there's this leaky door in the crawl space that let the carbon monoxide into the basement of the house over time. Now, the level was still way below anything that would threaten anyone, but it wasn't pleasant for those who were at the home at the time to get up and get out. So you have a window very close to this. That's not great. Do you have a basement window close to this?
There's a window well in the area.
Yeah, so I believe that the carbon monoxide is heavier and goes down, so it's the basement that's more susceptible, probably. So I explain that just because that's the perspective that I have. And so that's going to generate some of the thoughts that I'm going to share. I would suggest that you consider moving it more than 5 feet away from your house, because the farther away it is, the more diffuse the exhaust will get. I don't think it'll make it any less noisy, but I think the exhaust is a significant issue. I find 23 feet to Christopher Court to be a relatively short distance. I'm unsympathetic to the contractor's desire to put it directly adjacent to the electrical box. It's just a little bit more buried conduit. I would suggest that you might put it 30 or 35 feet away from that street and say 40 feet off of Christopher Street. So you're pulling it away from the house, you're pulling it back from both streets, not just one, as a thought. But all of those are thoughts. I don't have more to add. Thank you.
I'm trying to understand your property line and hence the responsibility for the plantings along Christopher Street. So you have a metal fence well inside of the trees and shrubbery that's between the sidewalk and the fence. And I'm trying to figure out from your survey where that falls. I mean, the survey shows a bunch of trees on your property, but, you know, visually being out there, it looks like some of that berm is in the right-of-way and hence not your responsibility, and most of, I'm just trying to get a sense of where we can put screening. You know, there are some gaps now where you can look in, and what makes sense. The noise ordinance, the limit 65, so, well, 67 is probably better than some older ones. Now, emergency generators are exempt from the noise ordinance, but it will be noisy, and I guess I want you to be able to test it as required, but I don't want you to test it more often or longer than required. And I'm struggling between what Mr. Church and Mr. Griffith, both referring to 30 minutes testing, and you're saying you were told that yours just requires 10 minutes, and that's a big difference once a week, listening for 10 minutes. And, as you know, a lot of people are working at home these days. And, so to go back, I had the same concern Mr. Griffith did in terms of the proximity to Christopher Court, and just trying to reduce the noise impacts. It seemed to me that being further back would make more sense. I don't know how best to do that, but is it correct? Your contractor suggested to have it closest to where the electric line into the house goes.
Yes.
Did he discuss at all how he was going to tie into the existing electric line?
Not in, Well, where the electrical line comes out is right there. And so that runs right down into the basement, and that's where the service is. But I didn't get into
Okay,
detail.
but would he, I'm assuming the line from the generator to the house would be built underground?
Oh, yes.
It's underground.
Yeah,
Well, that's important to know.
Yes, no, it's underground, but it doesn't have a long way to go to get to the side of the house where it goes in.
But I suspect in terms of cost, whether it's going 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet is going to be a nominal difference.
Yeah, once you start burying conduit, it's not, they'll charge you by the lineal foot, but I don't think that's going to change the day. Yes, they will charge you more. That's true, but.
Yeah, it's going to be a per foot cost, but it's not going to be $1,000 a foot cost.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's also a gas line, is there not?
There is,
There's a gas line as well.
It's natural gas, right?
yes.
Okay.
And, yeah. And my wife's noting that the gas is closer to the Christopher Court section. The electric is the one that's more back from the Christopher Court side of the house.
That's where it says GM, that's where the gas meter is, right?
Yes.
And the existing gas line to the house is coming off of Christopher Street?
Yes, I believe so.
But he's probably going to take it from the gas in the house already. He's
Yeah.
not, so
No,
he's
he's
going to
not
go
gonna
into the
go through-
house, tap into the gas line, and bring it out to the generator. So
Correct.
it's already metered, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get a sense of where the line is versus running the electrical line is what I'm,
I think I think both can run either way. He can bring it straight into the basement and run horizontally in the basement also. If I don't know what your basement's finished. I don't know how you're.
It's not. It's not.
Yeah.
Poured concrete, but not finished.
Yeah, that's the other alternative. He either buries it outside and takes it straight in, so it's right at the electric panel, or he takes it straight into the house and runs it to the electric panel inside the basement. It's probably cheaper for him to run more inside, but again, I don't think these are significant cost issues.
I would have to speak to
Yeah.
him.
How do you feel about the proximity of the generator to your home, considering the comments about carbon monoxide?
I'm most concerned, honestly, about the proximity to the window well rather than to the window itself. So I
Mhm.
think that would be something I'd want to talk to the contractor about. I've been trying to be sensitive, honestly, to the question of locating it so that it's not near anyone's home.
Not near what?
Anyone's home.
Yeah,
So this is somewhat central, where it is supposed to be right now is somewhat centrally located between our neighbor on the Christopher Street side and our neighbor across the street on Christopher Court. So it's, by my estimate, about 70 feet each direction from both of those. I was trying, one reason, I didn't propose the site, the contractor did. But one reason I was sort of okay with it is it seemed to be central with respect to our neighbor.
to the neighbors,
Yeah.
to the neighbor's house. You should count yourself, too.
Yeah, and I hadn't thought about the carbon monoxide issue, that's a concern. That's the big thing that you've raised that makes me think maybe we need to move it.
Yeah.
I would prefer to move it, honestly, along the wall rather than further out into the yard, just because it can become, again, obtrusive.
I'm trying to get a sense from your drawing. The electrical meter is midway between the two window wells.
Yes.
And is that where he's proposing to?
He's proposing to put it right in between the electrical meter and the gas meter. You should
But-
have both of those.
But
marked.
that is then placing it right near that one window well.
Absolutely.
Um, Just seems placing it lined up with the electrical meters, putting it back. I'm trying to understand your proposed dimension not seeming to fully match up with where things are located, but that, or it's really placing it right next to where that window well is.
Yes. And by the way, the only thing I added, that's all the survey. I just added the box for the generator.
I understand. Okay, any other questions from members of the board? Are there any members of the audience who either have questions or statements or anything you want to say about this application? Anything further either of you want to add before we discuss and vote on the application?
Don't think so.
Start discussion with Mr. McCullough.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think I'm in support of the application, and in terms of the placement, well, first of all, let me say that I think that the applicant is suggesting moving a bush or a planting in favor of the location of the generator, the platform, and is indicated that they intend to or are willing to do additional plantings along the fence in order to minimize the visibility. Perhaps also there could be a bush that is somewhat comparable to what they're removing on the Christopher Court side of the generator. That also would eliminate or curtail visibility to the street. Might also provide some natural shielding in terms of noise. I don't know, for those of you that have generators, whether or not plantings have much of an impact or not, I don't know. If there is a way to shift it a little bit further towards the neighbor on Christopher Street, I wouldn't object to that, but I wouldn't, from my vantage point, I wouldn't require it. So I'm in support of the application.
Mr. Cruz?
I'm in support of the application. I think with some plantings to provide a screen for Christopher Court. I'm not sure the height of the plantings, but between that and moving the generator perhaps adjacent to the electrical meter, that kind of splits the difference between the window wells. And outside of those two changes, I'm in support of the application.
Mr. Church?
I'm in support of the application.
Okay, Mr. Simon?
I'm also in support. I think we should just make the 23 feet a minimum requirement. Any distance they feel necessary behind that is okay with me. And as long as there's no clear line of sight from the Christopher Court to the generator, and you would shield it appropriately.
Mr. Griffith?
I still feel uncomfortable with the 23 feet to the, it's not just the acoustics, it's also the visibility and presence of it. And despite the fact that you may shield it with greenery, it's not always there. Things happen, stuff gets visible. I'd prefer that it be 30 feet from Christopher Court instead of 23, and that the location could be 5 to 10 feet away from your building as you see fit. And that gives you some flexibility to move it away from your home and negotiate some plantings around it in a way that works. It's a suggestion of mine. Other than that, and even without that, I support the ask.
Okay, I'm also in favor. I think, I think there are practical realities based on where the house is located on the property in relationship to the easterly property line, where the garage and the house are in relationship to the southerly property line, makes it the Christopher Street front yard is the only viable location for it. I think with the conditions I'm going to do in a second, this will not be a substantial detriment to the public good or a substantial impairment to the zone plan. I think the conditions are that the generator only be used in emergency circumstances, that testing be the minimum required by the manufacturer, that there be evergreen landscaping that would be at least 4 feet high that would screen it. I'll leave it to you where you put it. I mean, obviously it can't be next to the generator, but whether you want to do it along near the street or near the generator, and that it should be set back at least 30 feet from Christopher Court. Any other discussion among board members? And if not, someone want to make a motion?
I do have a question. Moving it back 30 feet, I think I'm okay with it as long as the contractor can do it. So that's the one thing. I'd have to confirm with them that they can do it.
They can do it. I'm,
Just say some nasty board made you do it that way, and he's stuck with it, and
if he says he can't do it, you should talk to another contractor, because maybe he's trying to take advantage of the circumstance financially. I don't know. It's not.
okay. Someone want to make a motion or second the motion? I guess we were at.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the application with the conditions mentioned.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? No?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application is that of Yoel Borgenicht and Shoshanna Bass for property at 88 South Mountain Avenue. This is an application to construct a tennis court or an all-purpose court in the rear of the property. Property that's located in the RO Mountainside Zone is then designated on the township tax maps as Block 204, Lot 17. The applicants applied for a variance from Montclair Code Section 347-20B to permit impervious coverage of 43.4%, whereas the ordinance provides for a maximum coverage of 35%. Are taxes paid, and is the notice in order?
Yes, taxes are current and the notice is sufficient.
Okay, Mr. Trembleak, you want to give your appearance and
Yes.
proceed?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Alan Trembleak, appearing on behalf of the applicants, Yoel Borgenicht and Shoshanna Bass. Clients are the owners of the property at 88 South Mountain Avenue, which is a large lot over 1.5 acres located in the R-O Mountainside Zone. I should note that there was an error in the planning memorandum which indicated the property was in the R1 zone. I think it's the first error I've seen Zana make since she's been here, but I think it's important to note that because under Section 347-31 of the zoning ordinance, tennis courts and platform tennis courts are permitted, expressly permitted as accessory uses in the RO zone, provided there's a determination that there's adequate screening from adjoining residential properties. My client, we're here because my clients would like to construct a athletic court in the very rear of their deep lot. The plans that are before you indicate compliance with setback requirements and all other zoning requirements applicable to the proposed athletic courts, except one, which is impervious coverage. We're seeking a variance from this board to permit impervious coverage of 43.4%, whereas the maximum permitted under the zoning ordinance is 35%. So again, it's a single variance application. Two witnesses. My first witness, who's sitting to my right, is Ben Crowder, the project engineer. So I ask that he be sworn.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address.
This is Ben Crowder, last name is spelled C-R-O-W-D-E-R. Business address is 30 Garber Square, Ridgewood, New Jersey, 07450.
Mr. Crowder, can you share with the board your educational background and professional qualifications?
Yes, I'm a principal with the civil engineering firm Bowler. I run our Northern New Jersey operation in the Ridgewood, New Jersey office. A Bachelor's of Science degree in civil engineering from the University of Pittsburgh, 16 years of site civil design experience in the industry, licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey as well as New York and Pennsylvania.
Does the chair offer him as an expert in the field of professional engineering, civil engineering?
Will we accept him?
Thank you. All right, Ben, you prepared the plans for this proposed facility?
I did.
Okay. Why don't you just discuss the plans with the board and exactly what's being proposed? I don't know. Did
Is
you
it
bring
okay? Is it okay to stand if I talk loud?
You need to take a microphone.
Okay.
Do you need the, you're not going to use the laptop? You brought your boards? Okay.
Is that good view for all board members? Okay. If I need to mark this, let me know, Chairman Harrison.
not.
This
You
is
do
an
not.
exact copy of what we've submitted. Okay. What you have is our demolition and site layout plan. At the bottom right-hand corner of that plan shows the approximate 1.57 acre property with the application that's within that RO mountainside zone. We're really situated more toward the rear or the western portion of the site that exists today, which is largely just a grassed slope in the back of the property behind the existing carriage house and garage, as well as the principal building. What you don't see on this plan is there's about a 40-foot grade change just from the rear back of that existing house up to the western or the rear property line. And what we're proposing in this area is an all-sports court. And when we say all-sports court, it's your typical hard court, tennis court material in that. And we're calling it an all-sports court just to accommodate things like a tennis court, pickleball, potentially a half court, basketball area in the backyard or rear yard of this property. We've positioned it entirely within the required setbacks to the rear yard, which is 10 feet. Around this all-sports court is a 10-foot high fence. That is a provision that is required when we are that 10 feet away from the property. Is a 10-foot fence is required. And then what we're also proposing to do within that 10 feet, there are some mature trees in that area, but also supplementing and enhancing that buffer within that rear yard space. In particular, the variance, as we had described, is limited to impervious coverage. We're about 33.04% today. 35 is permitted. With about the 7,200 square foot all sports court, it's about 60 by 120. We get to 43.4%. Certainly, as I look at this, impervious coverage, to me as a civil engineer, means how are you handling stormwater and drainage. One thing I want to indicate for this board is I have been working on this applicant's property for probably 8 to 9 years at this point. And as recent as 3 to 4 years ago, we actually designed a stormwater system just on the applicant's interest, not associated with improvements to the property, because there was a significant amount of off-site drainage area from the western and adjacent properties coming in to this property, just given the topography of the slope from Lloyd down to South Mountain Avenue. There were rivers, channelized flow entering the property, flooding the carriage house, flooding his house. So what we did is, on his cost, implemented and designed a stormwater drainage system around the perimeter of the site to collect and convey drainage area coming into the property. And what we actually did in the front yard, around in between the circular driveway from South Mountain Avenue, is we put in a very extensive underground detention basin. So all that water was now being captured, routed to that detention basin, and then controlled discharge to South Mountain Avenue and the township system. Whereas prior to that, not only the on-site conditions were a problem, but it was just running straight down that slope right into the street. So a lot of stormwater controls put in outside of any type of design intent for the property. Thereby, the 7,200 square feet, what our intent to do there is once that sports court platform and facility is designed, is to tie that into that infrastructure that the applicant has already installed on the property. One thing that's important to note here, just as it relates to impervious coverage, it's not like just paving the backyard. This is actually, because of the slope, it will be on some elevated raised platform in some areas. It's going to be kind of worked into the slope. So effectively what these courts do is they have some limited pitch on the surface. You then collect it, and then it can actually fall right down into the underlying, grassed area that's there, the existing slope, and a lot of the swales that we had designed originally when we put in a lot of these improvements to help mitigate a lot of the upstream drainage area. A couple other things just to note for the board: facility is not intended to have lights. We would accept that as a condition. No lights. This is daytime use only for the site. So these activities function of physical fitness for the applicant, daytime hours. And that concludes really my direct. If there's anything else I could answer.
Couple of follow-up questions. I mean, you talked about the drainage improvements that you've designed and were previously installed. Are those existing facilities adequate to accommodate the additional runoff that would result from this facility in the rear?
Yeah, because there was really an indeterminate amount of off-site drainage area coming into the property. We over-designed a lot of those pipes in the drainage facility that's underground on the applicant's front yard. So adding 7,200 square feet, I'm very confident, I could provide any type of calculation to support that this facility would easily be handled with what he put in on the property.
And you understand that if the application is approved, when permits are applied for, that there would be an engineering review by the town engineer?
Yes, absolutely.
And do you agree to comply with whatever comments or requirements he might have?
Yes.
Regarding drainage and stormwater?
Correct.
Okay. And have you taken a look at Montclair's stormwater ordinance as it relates or to determine whether it applies to this application?
Yeah, so based on the Montclair stormwater ordinance, we are not a major development. We're a minor development. Major development being classified in your ordinance as greater than a half-acre disturbance or a quarter-acre of motor vehicle surface or impervious coverage. We're 7,200 square feet, and our limit of disturbance is just about a quarter of an acre. So we, by definition, are not major, but certainly, once this all sports court is designed, any type of provision applicable to your minor development criteria, we would comply with.
All right, and I think from my review of the plans, some trees would need to be removed to accommodate the...
Yeah, there's some limited grading on right along where the fence line and the edge of that all sports court would be. Our intent is to replace those and then supplement, adequate screening in that 10 feet within the rear yard.
Okay. And it goes without saying that the applicant would have to comply with the requirements of the tree removal ordinance.
Yes.
Right. What about screening? Because there is a requirement that there be adequate screening around the proposed court to shield it from adjacent neighbors.
Yeah, so what we're proposing in lieu of some of the additional trees and things that are already existing around the property is the screening along the rear yard, but also wrapping it around the southern end of the facility and the northern end. And what we can also do within that 10-foot fence, which I actually think shields the activity and what's going on there, is actually put in a mesh lining through the fence, so that, you wouldn't physically be able to see through the three sides of that facility.
Specifically, what's being proposed in terms of the screening? Arborvitae?
Oh, it would be an all-season evergreen screen. Yes, correct, year-round.
And what height?
Usually those go in around 8 to 12 feet in height. We would select some high-growing evergreen trees. There are a lot of species where you'll get 1 to 2 feet in height, just by nature of what you're selecting.
And no further questions, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you. I think I have a variety of questions, Mr. Crowder, so.
Okay.
They may not necessarily be in any particular order, but.
I'm ready.
Okay. So let me begin, first of all, in terms of the dimensions of the court. Would you say that this is a typical size court, or is it slightly larger than one would normally find? Or, what's being proposed here?
Yeah, so your typical tennis court, that would be set up for doubles that you would see, is about 78 feet long and 36 feet wide. That's just line to line within the court. But what you like to do is, at least on the ends, add another 12 feet in width on both sides. So that's how we go from 36 to 60 on the width. And then similarly on the depth, provide a little bit more. So we went from the 76 to the 120. So that's a good, do my math, another 22 feet on the back end.
So when you look at this, at the dimensions of this court, and you're looking at because you said you've been working with this property over nearly a decade. Right.
Almost 8 years, yes.
It's a very sizable primary building.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's I guess there's like a pool house or whatever. Then there's a patio. Are you looking at this court as being comparable in dimension to other facilities on the property itself? Is that a factor in terms of how you sort of look at that?
We try to locate it, if you look at the position of this, we're trying to centralize it north to south on the property, and then, to the rear where you actually have, some buffer more toward the west, we're trying to hold that 10 feet there. Mm-hmm. The slope is a challenge with regard to the site. You've got a 40-foot grade change. But holistically, trying to look at that, as one, complying with your zoning ordinance, and then two, making sure that since we're slightly over that impervious, that we have provisions to handle drainage.
Okay. So I would call myself a novice in terms of working on a project like this. But my sense is that in order to accomplish this, it would require pretty substantial excavation.
What we're proposing to do is kind of integrate this platform into the slope. So there'll be a little excavation on the western end where you're on the high side, and then on this eastern side, you're actually going to probably have some concrete supports where it's more of a platform nature. So what we're trying to do is what we had spent a lot of time on 3 to 4 years ago with the drainage facility of this site, is we also created a lot of, and you can actually see them at times on the aerials, we put a lot of drainage swales in. So as a lot of the water was coming into this property, we wanted to catch it mid-slope so it didn't run down to the applicant's pool house and his actual home. Mm-hmm. So as we put this facility in, I don't want to mess with that. I want to keep those swales there and then incorporate how we're going to handle that actual surface of that court in that facility as well. So if you actually were on the east side of this sports court and you were looking west, you could actually see underneath that platform and you'd still have your landscaped lawn area. It's not going to be a very open, deep cut into that hill.
So if you were looking up at this from the streetscape you would not see an open area underneath this court. That's what you're saying.
Could you restate
If
that?
you were standing on South Mountain Avenue itself, looking up at this court, would you be able to see this court at all?
It's hard to tell. You've got your principal structure and your carriage house with your 2-car garage. From South Mountain Avenue, I don't think you're going to have a vantage point up to be able to look under what I'm talking about, just with the structure itself.
Or would you be able to see the structure?
Be able to see the structure. Yes, you'd be able
You
to
would.
see the structure.
So you would, and you're saying that in terms of the part of the court that would be elevated on some kind of pillars would be facing the house itself, not facing the,
Would be facing the house to the east.
Right.
To the east.
so some of it would be concealed by the carriage house, but some of it would not be concealed by the carriage house.
Some not by the carriage house or the principal structure as you worked
Right.
all the way down to South Mountain Avenue. I mean, it's a long, narrow
Right,
property there. So there's quite a distance from South Mountain to, the back of this site.
And this runs almost close to the entire width of the back of the yard, really. pretty close.
We're keeping probably, I got to mention, so we have about 20 to 25 feet from the north and south property lines.
And on the south side, there already is a line of trees or something.
Yeah, both property lines do have some intermittent trees. I don't think it's like a full
Right.
screen through there, and that's why we're gonna supplement on both the south, north, and west with appropriate all-season evergreens around this.
So, in terms of the excavation, what would it take in order to be able to do that in this location?
You're gonna have a lot of probably small equipment in there. It's not gonna be anything significant. What we're trying to do is basically push this platform into the slope versus excavating and then dropping in the platform. So that is really to minimize. We have a very well stabilized slope there today. And I also don't want to compromise all the drainage work that we did with the swales that are in that backyard today, because that was very important. If we all of a sudden we compromise that and we go back to what was there before a ton of money was spent on stormwater, it defeats the purpose. So that's why we were kind of considering this platform intent.
And so we would not be talking about having a number of trucks removing?
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
Nope.
All right, then you talked about having a 10-foot fence that would be along the perimeter of this.
All 4 sides.
Right, okay, and why 10 feet?
10 feet's what the ordinance permits. I like that height just because, if you have a tennis ball, you're playing a tennis match, you want a little bit more height just so, on the back lines, you don't have balls bouncing out
Right.
through there.
And you're confident that this fencing would not be quite that visible to the neighbors?
You would see the fence
see it.
in some capacity, but what we're gonna try to do, even at day one, is put in evergreen trees to screen that, and also commit to putting in a mesh on the fence itself, so you can't see through on those 3 sides.
And no lighting at all?
No lighting.
So that the owner doesn't anticipate that even in the fall and the winter and early spring, when, it's still kind of dark and early evening, they're not going to utilize this?
No.
That's their intent.
No.
The carriage house that is in front of this, is that being used for residential purposes?
Yeah, there is a residential piece above that garage that's utilized.
So would this have any impact on the residents in that location? Are they renting that to someone, or that's?
I don't know the answer, but we could certainly answer that for you.
For our family's exclusive use.
If you're going to come up and answer the question, you have to be sworn in. So
Yeah, have a seat.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth in the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address.
Yoel Borgenicht, 88 South Mountain Avenue.
So would you just repeat what you just said
Absolutely.
before you were sworn in?
We utilize the carriage house for our family's purposes.
It's not rented out?
No.
Not rented out. And there would not be any intent in terms of the future to rent it out?
No.
That's not your intent? And this would be, I guess, aluminum fencing? Is that what you're talking about, or?
It's proposed as more of a chain link fence.
Chain link fence.
Yeah, but we would run the mesh screening through it.
There is a walkway that leads up from the carriage house. Well, yeah, I think sort of leads somewhat up into that area.
Yeah, so right behind the pool house area of the main structure, there is stepping stones that come up the hill to get you to the upper side of the carriage house. And the intent would be to continue that walkway to a gate on the eastern side that would get you access into the sports area.
So that would be, basically would be the same kind of walkway that you currently are utilizing in terms of design?
Yeah, correct. Yep, to get up to that slope.
Do you think that the mesh would help curtail the sound of tennis balls being hit back and forth? And I mean, I just kind of wonder, just in terms of the neighbors, you know, whether or not they would be susceptible to hearing the activity that is taking place on the court.
I don't, my professional opinion, I don't think the mesh is going to do any type of sound attenuation. We usually put that in to screening mechanism of something you just don't want to look at, like a construction site.
Is there anything that can be done to the surface of this court that would help curtail?
I don't know all the specifics. I don't design the sports courts, but there are just, like a basketball court and things, there are sound attenuation pieces that can be incorporated into these platforms. But usually it's a concrete slab with an acrylic top on it, your traditional surface that you see at the U.S. Open for tennis.
I guess my last question is, you said that, there will be some cutting into the hill in order to facilitate this. So are you proposing any kind of like a stone wall where you've cut into the hill in order to deal with erosion, or is it just the plantings that you're intending to do?
Yeah, so what would, like, right now there's no wall contemplated on that top side or the western side, and the intent there is when that water comes into our property from the adjacent properties, and it's a lot,
Yeah.
we still want to capture that via a swale before it runs right onto the sports court. So you'll see in the grading plan that we submitted, we're still implementing a swale in that area to capture the water routed around the sports court and then integrating that platform into the slope. Final design might have a little bit of a cut or like a little landscape seat wall right there, just so the platform is not floating around. But we do want to make sure, one, for all the work that's already happened on the property, that we're still have stormwater controls with all the runoff coming in today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Those are my questions for now.
Yes, hello, good evening.
Good evening.
So my first, I'm trying to get a sense of the timeline in terms of when some of these improvements were made in light of July 2023.
July 2023.
So I guess my first question would be, so I'm seeing that in the survey that it seems like a partial survey. So when it comes to the rear yard topography, did you get that from USGS LiDAR? Did you get that from a different surveyor?
The as-built of the survey was done post all of our drainage improvements back there. The front of the property we kind of merged two surveys, so the backyard is more accurate because that's where we needed to, design this area.
Okay. And when were the drainage improvements done?
I'm going to say, Yoel may know a little bit better. I'm going to say 2022, 2023, entirely finished up.
Okay. And when it comes to, since the DEP, in the last couple of years, they provided the BMPs and all of that lovely stuff. What would
My
your
favorite.
comments? What would your comments be in this design with regard to green infrastructure, quality, quantity, etc.?
Yeah. So what's good about what we did in 2022, 2023 is it is an underground, small-scale detention infiltration facility. So it's largely your quantity control and your quality, because all the water that we're capturing is coming across landscape surfaces, getting captured and then held in that area. So if I looked at it, even to your minor development criteria in the township, which we're going to agree to, provide compliance to, I still think it holds true with capturing the 7,200 square feet.
So all of this is going to be. I see there's one dry well, and then you have the underground basin. Has the underground basin in the front yard already been built, or?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
And it's infiltration.
It's detention and infiltration. It's if you can, I like to describe it. It's called an R tank system.
Mhm.
So if you can picture the large milk crates that
Sure.
you see. It's a lot of stacked milk crates that are wrapped.
Yeah.
It just gives you a lot of volume underground.
Okay. And when this was installed, did you do soil testing and?
We did borings in the front yard. Correct.
Do you recall the hydrologic soil group or the conductivity, the permeability?
I can tell you we didn't need infiltration in our design intent. That was
Mhm.
just above and beyond. We were using it mostly for quantity, just to grab all this water that was coming into the driveways, running down the South Mountain Avenue. It was more of a quantity measure.
So it was more so to deal with the problem at the time, which was the flooding of the property.
Yes, it was really an intent of, and I mention all the time, it's almost like putting a commercial stormwater facility on a residential property because there was so much runoff coming in.
Right. Just because I was double checking for major development, and one of the things that 7:8 was saying that if anything that's been disturbed more than an acre since, unfortunately, 2004, I think the green infrastructure is a little bit much. But I guess where I'm coming from it is really more so just the quantity reductions, just those existing pre-construction, post-construction quantity reductions. I know the minor development standard is not as intensive, but I guess where I'm coming from is as long as the quantity reductions are being met, that would be my line of questioning, if you will.
Yeah, I'm confident just with the design of what we had done back in 2022, 2023, that the 7,200 square feet is still going to satisfy that intent.
So what you would be capturing from the 7,200 square feet, that reduction is going to satisfy the 75, 80, 50?
That's one mechanism. I'm going to say curve under curve, the pre to post development hydrographs. So any point in time, making sure that runoff rate does not exceed what's there today. So what we have working in our favor with these courts is all these swales in the backyard.
Right.
That we can discharge, slowly run that water to the systems.
Okay, so at this point, you could certainly affirm that the overall site runoff from what it was in the pre-existing conditions is going to be reduced.
Oh, yes, very
Okay.
much so.
But at this time, whether it meets the 50, 75, 80, that would require a report or further analysis.
Yeah, I'd run through those calculations and choose one of those two methodologies in the stormwater regs
Okay.
to do that. And that certainly, as we had indicated, we're going to, I'm sure, have an engineering review when this thing gets designed. We go in for permit, things like that we're going to have to demonstrate that compliance.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So then, so like the main basin or whatever. There's not going to be anything underneath the court. It's all going to be routed to the basin in the front yard.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then I guess the last thing would just be any comments you might have on like green infrastructure.
Specific to the stormwater regs?
Yeah.
I'm going to say a lot of what we did pertaining to the swales directly aligns with some of that green infrastructure non-structural strategy. So instead of having a ton of pipe here, I want to rely on the swales that are on those existing slopes.
Okay. I think those are all my questions for now. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Church?
You stated that the 10-foot fence, if I heard you correctly, would be a chain link fence?
That's correct.
How big? Small?
I would say it would mimic what you see, in tennis
Standard
court
playground.
parks, things like that,
And the
small
mesh-
enough.
Mesh goes through that.
And the mesh goes through, correct.
And that'll be visible from the street, or not from the street?
I think with the grade change of South Mountain Avenue all the way to the back of the property, I think, I can't say that you're not going to be able to see it. I mean, that you got a significant grade change there.
Okay, and the mesh you use is going to be what, black mesh?
Probably, I would think it would be comparable to like a dark green, something that integrates with, the evergreen plantings that we put in.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Thank you.
Mr. Simon?
Hi. Excuse me. You mentioned that the approximate dimensions of a tennis court is 36 by 78, or something to that effect.
Correct.
So does the court really need to have such a large buffer to make it 60 by 120? Would you be opposed to reducing that buffer zone somewhat?
The width, I think, is very common to have 12 feet on each side. So that's just, width outside of your doubles lines, your doubles side lines. The depth, we're at 120 to 78, so you're 42. Maybe a little bit, but you do like to have a little bit more depth there just as you're playing tennis.
Yeah, it'd be nice, but you're asking for a variance for coverage, so I would think you want to minimize the effect. So I would consider a smaller dimension, at least one of them.
I'll go back to just standard court depths and see if there's a variation, and if we can adjust it by a couple feet on each end, that'd be
sure
something to be willing to do.
Every foot would matter. And in terms of the placement, you're within the parameters of 10 feet, but you're right out against that line. Considering the size of the property, would you consider moving it closer so it's not so close to the property line where it's going to have a more impact on your neighbors if it's right up against the edge?
There's probably a little bit of flexibility. What's occurring though is you get closer to that carriage house, the slope really picks off. So we were trying to put it up more toward a lot of the middle slope areas where we had already instituted swales, so that structure, and I'm back on my board. If you can kind of imagine it, you can see the swale here. It's almost falling in the middle of where we're placing this, and that's to help with whatever the final drainage intent of that surface is, that it can go right to that swale.
Again, it's just a consideration, because if you're putting a fence in construction, any little variance in your construction might impede on that 10-foot limitation. So just to give yourself a little bit more room and have some extra consideration for the neighbors.
Understood.
No questions.
Mr. Griffith?
Hi.
Hi.
C801 shows, I believe, the elevations of the top of the court relative to the grade. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And if my math serves me correctly, it means that assuming north is up, then that would be the east elevation faces the street, correct?
East elevation faces South Mountain Ave.
Faces south, okay. That thing there. To the right of the page.
To the right of the page.
To the right of the page is the street, correct?
To the east, yes.
And that edge of your tennis court is 15 and a half feet high on the upper right-hand corner?
That is
Above grade,
correct. That's
and
correct.
11.5 feet high on the right-hand corner, correct?
Bottom right, yes.
That's a sizable structure, right? I mean, above grade. If I'm walking down the street and I look up at the yard, it's a 15-foot high wall of something, correct?
It's the platform nature of integrating this into the existing topography, yes.
Is this an accessory structure? And are you complying with the requirements of an accessory structure? I don't know. I mean, at 15 feet high, it's more than a tennis court, in my opinion.
It's an accessory use permitted in the RO zone.
Most tennis courts are flat, not built on a steep ridge. So maybe it's an exception.
Well, I think
I'm concerned about that height, okay? We'll start there. Let's keep going. On the opposite side, the tennis court is in essence raised above the adjacent grade. And I believe that that's done purposely in order to keep the water running underneath it and to make use of the swales that you have already designed and installed underneath the tennis court, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you consider dropping the tennis court, say 5 feet, putting a retaining wall on the left-hand side with drainage that would bring it around the tennis court so you don't get the dirt and everything else on your tennis court, and you reduce the height of it facing the street, and the water, you already have drains up there on the corners, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could pipe that water straight to your drains there.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a great idea. The sport court, without a final design of that platform, the intent is to integrate that within the upper slope and the lower slope. I don't want this thing just sticking up. To some of the comments earlier, I could see a small landscape wall on that upper side of the court, just so that the overall platform itself drops down. The most important thing, though, is making sure that water for the use of that sport court, but more importantly for this property, is still getting captured for what's coming into the site. So as long as I can make those grades work and route around, Mr. Griffith, to your comments, that is entirely what we're going to do.
I understand and appreciate the intent. I question what has happened in order to realize it. I think the 15-foot high structural platform in the backyard is unusual. And as far as I can understand, all I see are lines and talk about concrete, which I think it would have to be in order to be solid enough and provide the foundation that you have to put in. I can't have any perception as to what it really does look like. You talked about the stormwater retention tank that you've already installed.
Correct.
You said that you felt that the size of that stormwater retention tank would be large enough to cover what would be shed by this solid surface that you're installing.
Yes.
And how do you do, what's the math on that? Do you have calculations on that can you tell us the size of the tank? Can you show us the calculations that show the runoff from the solid surface so that we could have the opportunity to understand and agree with the math?
Yeah, absolutely. So that basin, just to clarify for the record, and all this infrastructure was put in to help with the off-site drainage area coming into the property. So what we did is, determine what that off-site drainage area was at the time, oversized some of those conveyance pipes, and we added a factor of safety into the quantity capacity of that underground site facility, so that any future improvements we could utilize that instead of having some other stormwater intent that had to tie directly down to South Mountain Avenue. So what I'll agree to, and I've noted this, is that I would certainly provide all the supporting calculations to demonstrate that that 7,200 square feet can be handled and conveyed down to that existing basin from that
The
report
base-
that I already
the-
did.
The storage retention tank is adequately sized?
Yes.
Okay. And it holds the water and slowly...
Slowly
lets it go.
releases it
How is it built? What kind of design is it?
So as I was kind of describing earlier, if you can kind of think of an excavated hole, you've got a filter fabric wrap in the hole, and then it's a bunch of, making it very simple, but it's a bunch of stacked milk crates
Yes.
through there, and then it's backfilled on top.
A bunch of drainage filtration.
Correct.
And the walls are pervious as well, so it holds the water and the water slowly...
And you get a
drains
lot
out
of volume in there because there's a lot of open space in those crates through there.
The mesh.
Yes.
Good answer. No acoustic, meaningful acoustic noise. The mesh concerns me. So the 10-foot fence, I assume it's like a chain link fence, right?
Yes.
Visibly open, and this is acceptable. The mesh, when you put it on it, I see that as a thing that goes both ways. So it could be desirable because nobody wants to watch you play tennis, and/or you don't want people watching you play tennis. Or it could be undesirable because it makes that 10-foot high fence now look more massive and present 24 hours a day. So if we were to approve the idea of having the mesh, I would suggest that it be, taken down if required by any of your neighbors as a visible problem.
Yeah, we don't have a preference. We just thought
Understood.
that was an enhancement, but if it is going to be not in favor either by a resident or anyone on this board, we won't put it in.
I would put it up because my tennis game is as good as my golf game. So,
Okay.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one question. And this relates to what Mr. Griffith had said. The one requirement in our ordinance is that this be completely shielded from other residential properties. And I'm really, really concerned about your ability to shield this platform, which rises 15 feet from the ground on the north side and 11.5 feet from the ground on the south side, upon which you're going to put a 10-foot fence. You've provided no information as to how either the existing landscaping or any proposed landscaping will shield essentially a 25-foot tall structure from the neighbor to the north, or a 22.5-foot structure from the neighbors to the south. How are you going to do that? And I just am amazed that there's nothing to show how that can be accomplished.
Yeah, so what we're gonna, as I was kind of indicating, we're showing tentative grades of this platform, but as I've heard feedback from the board, recessing that platform down and working it into the slope so that you don't have an 11 and a 15-foot reveal on those two critical corners will help bring that total height down. And what we're committing to, and I'm glad to provide a landscape plan, is on all three sides, provide all-season evergreen trees. I recommend, just for survivability, that those go in at 10 to 12 feet, and we'll choose species that grow 1 to 2 feet per year.
Okay.
So that ultimately you're going to get that screen through there. And for the fence, we wanted to incorporate the mesh just to help, the activity, but if that's, not desirable or it needs to be removed, we can certainly take that out of
But you'll still see the fence.
You would still see the fence.
Let me follow up with what Ms. Talley did. I was getting there anyway, but keeping with the existing design and not lowering it, the And at the southeastern corner, you're looking at a 15-foot difference from the existing grade to the platform, is that correct?
Existing grade to the platform, yes.
Okay, and then you're going to have a 10-foot fence on top of, next to the platform, so it's going to be 25 feet above the existing grade, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The question I have is, I don't see any way that that could be screened from the property on Mulford Lane that's at the end of the cul-de-sac, the westernmost of the two on the cul-de-sac, in any realistic fashion.
So we dropped the platform.
Okay, but Janice got me a little out of sequence with the
I'm
questions.
sorry.
That's okay.
I was aching to say that.
No, I mean, that's the correct point to make is and several board members have made it, that but let me go back to where I was going to start, because
Sure.
that'll get us back there. But my understanding of the drainage improvements you installed is the property owner was having problems with stormwater from the property and from the properties to the west coming down, and was probably impacting the garage, Kara's house, and the main building. You designed a stormwater system to divert it around the house and put it into a facility in the front of the property to eliminate the problems they were having. Is that correct?
Correct.
What you're showing is existing swales that are now going to be under the tennis court.
Correct.
Part of that, did you do any excavation for those, or?
At the time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, those
And-
were all put in both, there's actually two. There's one along the western property line, there's one
One-
about halfway down.
Right, okay. So, but the headwaters, for want of a better term, of those two swales are underneath where the court is going, is that correct?
The one on the western property line is, we're kind of shifting it up a little closer so it grabs it before it runs onto the court. The one that's middle slope remains as is underneath the platform.
Okay. And are those are currently vegetated, I assume?
Yes.
Okay, so the one that will be under the court, and even if you lower the court, it's still going to be under the court.
Mm-hmm.
There's not going to be remaining vegetation there, is that correct? Because this is going to be, it's going to be totally shaded.
Correct. And under that vegetation, though, is a perforated pipe with, like in a stone trench. So the intent is that that swale is giving a little bit of surface water runoff, but as it gets in the ground, it's getting into that pipe.
Okay.
too.
Yes, my concern is if this ceases to be vegetated, and as you testified, there's still going to be a fair amount of stormwater runoff coming from this property and the adjacent property. How are you going to control erosion of that area?
So one, you could stabilize that slope underneath with like a jute mat or some type of erosion mat. If the design of the sport court isn't conducive to that drainage dropping into that swale, we have the ability to tie into one of the perimeter structures around the north or the south property line directly with a pipe.
With the current design, there would be a limited amount of excavation required where you're going. There's a little pocket of 140-foot slope that's underneath the rear of the court that will have to be lowered, and a little bit where the
Very
existing
little.
140-foot to do that. What are you going to do with this soil that's excavated?
Respread and recontour on that existing slope.
Okay. If you lower the court, there would then be required a significant amount of excavation, correct?
If we lowered the court, yeah, the lower we put that platform, the more cut into that slope,
I
yes.
assume you haven't considered the extent to which the property could accommodate, or whether you'd have to remove it.
The platform could certainly be lowered. It's going to be a lot of more earth moving around. we can't cut into that slope 10, 15 feet. There'd be nowhere for it to go.
And going back to the question of the height, I mean, there is not quite the same extent, but you have a similar situation on the northeast corner, a couple feet less, but you're still, the fence is still going to be over 20 feet above the existing grade, correct?
That is correct.
I guess I just have a tremendous concern, as other board members have expressed, that we're not looking at a tennis court as, we've had other tennis courts on flat surfaces, and this is going to be something very much taller. Okay. Other questions from members of the board? Mr. Cruz?
Yeah, just a couple more. So when some of these improvements were done back in 2022, 2023, was an as-built ever commissioned for the improvements?
Yes, it was.
I take it that, was that that wasn't part of the submitted documents?
No, we were, just because these improvements were mostly focused on the back portion of the site, we had just gotten updated information back there.
Okay.
For that.
And then I think my last question would just be, because I was just double checking, the ordinance mentions that half an acre or more disturbed since the past, 20 years or something like that, collectively, counts towards the criteria for a major development. So I was just curious what your position or professional opinion would be as to why this is a minor development in spite of that disturbance.
If they're looking at the cumulative aspect of that, and we are deemed a major development, we're still going to be able to comply with that major development criteria, because all of the stormwater improvements that we put in on the property were just an as-is need by the owner to do, not necessitated by improvements. So I'm confident that if it was treated that way, or the engineer at time of building permit said the same thing, we could support that as well.
Okay. So then just little things where it would just be taking those on the north side, just tying those leaders into the infiltration basin as well. If you had to do something like that, that would be a doable thing.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Are there any members of the audience who have questions for this witness? And this is just an opportunity to ask questions. There will be a later opportunity to say this is the most wonderful or most awful project you've ever seen, but this is just to ask questions of this witness. And come forward and give your name and address. Yeah.
Russell Pinellas, 80 South Mountain Avenue.
Okay, make sure the green light is on.
Can you say your name one more time?
It's Russell Pinellas. My address is 80 South Mountain Avenue.
Could you spell your last name, please?
Pinillis.
Press it again. Press the light on. Now
Oh, it
it's
looked like
on.
it was on. You want me to go again? Sorry about that. It's Russell Pinellas. It's Pinillis, and I live at 80 South Mountain, which is actually confusingly next door to 88 South Mountain. On the board there, can you just show us where the steps to get up into the court will be? How will someone get onto the court?
Yeah, the intent is there's already stone that's put in behind the existing pool house that walks up really your steepest part of that slope to the upper area of the carriage house. The intent is from the carriage house area, it would come straight west to a gate and up to that platform.
So the steps are there? The stone steps are there?
Which stone steps?
I'm sorry, you said there were stone steps that go up from the carriage house. Is that right? Is that what you just testified?
From the pool house, they go up the slope to the carriage house, the top side of the carriage house.
Okay.
From there, no, there's some older, smaller concrete stairs, but there's no steps yet up that slope.
Right, so how would you get up into the court?
Yeah, it'd be the same, we'd have stepping stones that get up to that.
Okay, and have you included those in the impervious coverage?
Yeah, there's a factor built in for that.
Can you just show us that on the
So-
screen? Because I don't see any steps on the screen.
No, so there's existing steps here. We basically took that area, extended that forward, assuming that there was a staircase and/or steps to get up to that final platform elevation.
And that's included in, you're testifying that that's included in the 44% impervious coverage?
43.4%, yes.
Okay.
But it's not shown on the plan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's not on the plan.
I understand. We build in some allowances like that just so that we're stepping up and accounting for those future pieces that come in to the plan.
I'm sorry, so in what is in the plan, what's the impervious coverage that you have included in the plan?
I don't have that number. I just have the final number of what it would be with the steps in.
Okay. So you've calculated that notwithstanding that it's not in the plan?
Correct, yes.
Now, you testified that you've been working for the applicant, I think you've said a few different numbers. You said 8 years, 9 years, and less than 8 years. How long have you been doing work on this property?
Since 2017,
2017 was the first project you did?
yes.
And what project was that?
Assessing all of the flooding and drainage issues that were coming into Yoel's house.
What other projects have been done on this property?
A circular driveway was put in. There's been some patio work on the southeastern corner of the existing house. All the drainage improvements that I described around the perimeter and swales. Some paving, some work in the back to assist with drainage between the house and the carriage house.
And was there a large addition that included a pool?
Yes, but that predated me.
Okay. So how much impervious coverage did the driveway take up?
I don't have those exact numbers. I can tell you that under existing conditions, we're at 33.04%.
Oh, we're at 33.04%?
Under existing conditions today, yes.
Okay. And so can you just tell me what the nature of the configuration of the property that requires exceeding the 35% impervious coverage?
I don't understand the question.
Well, in order to get a variance, the law requires that the nature or configuration of the property requires exceeding the impervious coverage. So how does the nature or configuration of the property require to go over 35%? Or is it just something that they want to do?
I think it's an activity and amenity for the family on the property as a permitted use in the RO zone.
Well, it's not a permitted building. It's a permitted use, but it's not a permitted building.
I would argue
That's what
it's
we're here
not
to decide.
I don't think it's a building, it's a use.
Okay. So what percentage, sorry, I don't remember. What percentage did you say we're going to?
43.4%.
Okay, and I think you said earlier it was a small increase.
Plus or minus 7,200 square feet.
Yeah. What is the percentage increase over the permitted impervious coverage?
8.4%.
No, that's 8.4 percentage points. What's the percentage increase? I think it would be
could do the math.
24%, but I'm not testifying you are.
24%.
It'd be a 24% increase.
I'm not sure I follow that. What do you mean by 24% increase?
Well, if you're permitted 35% and you're going to 43%, that's 24% more.
Okay, yeah, fair.
So you testified before that it was a small increase. Are you characterizing a 24% increase over the permitted amount as small in
No.
your professional experience?
I'm looking at 7,200 square feet of impervious surface as, whether you look at stormwater regulations or you look at just that general size and area as it relates to what I'll do as a civil engineer for stormwater, as a de minimis impervious coverage.
So you're testifying that a 24% increase over the permitted impervious coverage is de minimis in your professional opinion?
I'm saying the size of the pavement or the surface.
That's not the question I asked.
No, I'm not saying that de minimis is a 24% overrun from 35%.
Right. Would you testify that that's significant?
With relating to the 35%, we're going up to 8% of the property.
So is that significant in your professional opinion?
Is that significant?
Is that a significant increase in impervious coverage?
No. I'm looking at the area.
In your career, how many times have you testified and gotten variances for increases in impervious coverage of 24% or larger?
Several times.
3?
I don't have a number.
So you don't know?
A half a dozen that I can think of. Commercial parking
And how long,
lots.
for commercial parking lots? How many times have you done it for residential areas?
I don't have any.
So in your experience, you've never seen this large of an increase over the impervious coverage for a residential neighborhood?
No, I haven't.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Are there any other members of the audience who have questions for this witness?
Good evening. My name is Kenneth Traum. I live at 24, and I own 24 Mulford Lane, Montclair. And first, before I ask questions, I would like to deal with a preliminary matter. I believe that there's a jurisdictional defect in this application that hasn't been addressed. And I'd just like to address that to the board. Specifically, it deals with the notice. The notice in this case to the homeowners within 200 feet indicated that there was an application being made for the installation of a tennis court. What we've heard tonight, and what is in the plans that are submitted, is that this is an application for an all-sports court. And we did hear testimony that it might be used for pickleball, although there was a suggestion perhaps for a half-court basketball, but I don't know why it wouldn't be full-court basketball. So I submit that what is, and then if you look at the Montclair code, this is the RO Mountainside Zone, and what is permitted as an ancillary use, or accessory use, excuse me, are tennis courts and, I'm just trying to find the exact wording.
Platform tennis courts.
Tennis courts and platform tennis courts subject to planning board determination of the adequacy of screening. And it goes on from there. So I would first submit that this is not properly before this board because this really is a requirement for a use application because it is not a tennis court because it clearly is being built as a platform. And so therefore I submit it's not a tennis court and not within the purview of this and it needs to be
Well,
renoticed.
it's the right board regardless, because we would do it either way. Mr. Tremblak, do you want to respond on the notice issue?
Well, I mean, technically he's correct. We're proposing something that's tennis and beyond. I mean, look, I defer to Mr. Sullivan. I mean, I'm happy to renotice the application. We're just going to be back here again.
Well, in response to that,
the neighbors are here.
Well, there are some neighbors here, but if people read a notice that says tennis court, in one's mind, a tennis court we all think of in common parlance as something that's on the ground, as several of the members have talked about. So if a homeowner, and there are many within 200 feet, there are only 4 of them here tonight, there may be people who got the impression from this notice that what was being built is a standard tennis court, not an all-sports court. And an all-sports court is far different. We've already heard that they're planning, perhaps pickleball. That's not tennis. Basketball is not tennis. So I would submit it. It does need to be renoticed because people who are not here tonight have not necessarily been given the appropriate notice that they should have been given. So that's my preliminary statement. I don't know if the board wants to act on that at this moment.
Add to the issue before Mr. Sullivan opines.
I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty hearing you.
Okay. To add to the issue before Mr. Sullivan gives his view, I actually have a more fundamental issue. Definition of height of fence wall, retaining wall, the vertical distance from the natural grade of the base of the fence. Nothing in the notice dealt with the height of the fence. The testimony dealt with the fence is going to be much more than 10 feet, parts of it much more than 10 feet above the natural grade. And I will now turn it over to Mr. Sullivan whether the two issues raise a notice issue.
Yeah, I mean, strictly on the tennis court issue, I think, it's a close call, but I think it substantially complies with it. But once you factor in the fence height, I think that out of an abundance of caution, I would say we should renotice that just so that we don't run into that. It's not so much jurisdictional as the chairman said. This application, no matter what they're doing, is coming here, not to the planning board. So it's in the right board, but perhaps that's the better course of action, is to just renotice it and eliminate that as an issue.
I agree, because there are people here as...
Well, that's conjecture on your part. You don't know that, okay? So there are certain people here. We don't know if there would be other people.
No,
but
that's true. That's true. That's why notice has to be appropriate.
I also think the applicant may want to look at revising the plan before if in fact they're coming back, to address some of the issues that have come up by questions from the board members and from the public thus far.
Yeah, and I think in the interest of, and you'll get, since they have to renotice, you'll get another opportunity of giving the applicant guidance as to, they've heard the board's concerns, but, any questions you have, which will probably, I don't want you, again, saying you oppose the application or love the application, but questions you have might give them additional guidance on revisions they're making to the plans.
So you want me to ask questions
Yes,
tonight
yeah.
as well?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I'd be happy to. So, Mr. Crowder, where? Oh, I need to be sworn in, or no?
You're just asking
You're only
questions.
asking questions, so you don't need to be sworn in
All
for
right,
that.
that's fine. Mr. Crowder, you've testified at various points in time about prior work that was done for stormwater runoff issues. Yet there's nothing in your plan that's been nothing that's been submitted to this board has any figures whatsoever to substantiate what you said, that you think that what was put in will carry or take care of the runoff that is caused by this impervious surface. Is that correct, that there are no such figures?
Yeah, I have not submitted anything, correct.
Okay. So how would a board possibly make a determination at this stage whether or not it's adequate without having any figures?
I think it's twofold. One, I'm committing to any type of condition of approval that we would provide these calculations, and certainly before this goes in front to the building department for any type of permit, it's going to go through an engineering review as well. I also have to get soil conservation district approval for our soil disturbance. All three of those steps will be reviewing the calculations.
Except without having the figures on an evening like such as this, or when it's renoticed, if neighbors wish to be heard and wish to have an expert, there's no way of cross-examining your determination that you've told this board without having those figures in front of us. And you're talking about getting an approval and then subsequently substantiating it. Is that correct?
There would be checkpoints on behalf of the town and agencies to make sure that my calculations are consistent with what I've
But residents
indicated.
wouldn't have an opportunity, such as one tonight, to question your testimony in that regard, because there's nothing here other than your testimony that you did this and that's what it says.
Technically, that's correct,
Okay.
yes.
And what exactly did you, well, you've testified a little while ago that you put in some extra for addition, in your calculations, some extra for impervious coverage items that aren't on your plan. Is that correct?
All we've included a provision for is if you could draw a small rectangle from this existing dead-end staircase right over to the platform, we had done that. Because largely the sport court is not something I'm going to design. It would go to a third party to design and incorporate.
Okay. And so you don't know, based upon the design that might occur in the future, whether there'll be more impervious coverage items that are not included in the 43.4%, meaning more steps, wider steps. You don't know anything about that, do you? Because it hasn't been designed yet.
That's correct. That's why I build in those provisions of running, those additional areas right up to the sport court.
But what if the homeowner applicant put in, after getting approved, put in more steps or wider steps? It's going to change the impervious coverage issues, correct?
Yes, it would change.
Right. But right now, we have nothing to go on to tell us what that.
I think you've made your point,
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Crowder. The correct answer is going to be when the plan's revised,
Yeah.
you're going to provide sufficient calculations
Thank you.
to
Yes.
put the public on notice as to exactly how you got to those numbers.
Yes.
Okay. Now, have you ever been involved with a platform tennis court in the past?
Not the design of one, no.
Do you know anything about the dimensions of a platform tennis court?
No.
Have you ever seen a platform tennis court?
Yes.
And based on your observations, are platform tennis courts smaller in size than tennis courts that are for doubles tennis?
I don't have an opinion on that. I don't know.
So we also testified that, and I've heard testimony about there being various columns at the four corners of the proposed platform, correct?
There could, yes, in the final design.
Well, okay, in the current design, they, I think, go from like 3 feet to as much as 15 feet. Is that correct?
Relative to height, yes, we were
Yeah,
talking about the height.
of the columns.
That's correct.
What else is going to support this 120-foot span between the southern part of the platform and the northern part of the platform? So you'll follow my question?
I do, and I don't have an answer for you because those are done by a third party that specializes in platform tennis court design.
So it's possible that there might need to be more columns, correct?
Oh, absolutely.
And
Yes.
more columns that are underneath the platform to support the platform are going to create more impervious coverage, are they not?
No, because they already fall within the large rectangle that I have on the plan that I've assumed is 100% impervious.
I agree with that. You're right. You're absolutely right. But it is going to have, those columns will have an impact on the way the water is dispersed, will it not? Because there'll be less ability for the swales to capture the water, which are covered by these additional columns.
I don't think that's necessarily true, because one of the provisions that we're doing in the revised design is the most important swale on this property is the one that is adjacent to the western property line.
But your calculations didn't include those other columns, did it? That may, the columns that may need to be placed underneath the platform?
With regard to what?
Your
What
calculations that your system that we don't know about, that you put in that was put in years ago.
Those calculations are solely based on the additive impervious coverage of that sports court surface, not necessarily where a column is or how many there are underneath.
Now, you said there was an as-built done in 2022 or 2023?
I don't know the exact year, but after a lot of these improvements, as we were doing the various pieces on the property, we were always obtaining updated surveys.
But does what has been presented to this board accurately describe the conditions today? Because I've noticed it's based upon various surveys at various points in time, and it's difficult for me to ascertain whether or not it actually reflects an as-built condition.
Yes, because as we were going through, there's as-built information in the front, there's as-built information in the back. They're across different surveys as these improvements were occurring. So we utilize that as a, call it a blended as-built of those conditions for the property as it relates to assessing impervious.
Okay. And are you aware of the fact that this is in a steep slope section of the RO zone?
Yes, there's steep slopes in
And
the
so
back.
is it correct, or is it your understanding that this board cannot grant an approval until there's been an engineering review of the plan?
I'm not aware of that.
Has there been an engineering review of this plan?
I have not received one.
I have no further questions.
Are there any other members of the audience who have questions for this witness? Come forward.
It's not a question, it's just more of a comment to the board. No, it's not, this isn't really the time for comments, this is time for questions.
Are there any other members of the audience who have questions for this witness? Okay, let me give you a little more guidance. One, I think it would be helpful for the board for there to be an engineering review of the applications, and
I agree. I was going to
Yeah.
request it candidly.
rather than just saying, well, there'll be an engineering review down the road. Two, as I think we have pointed out, and members of the public, having the path to the court shown will be helpful, because
Sure.
I don't know what assumptions you made about its width, length.
Sure.
But clearly, it's going to have to go to the back of the court, so the gate's going to have to be there, not 10 feet off the ground in the front, so that's a longer path, and just have that shown and show it, 3 feet wide, whatever it's going to be.
Okay.
So we know that, and we can see where the gate is. I don't know, any other board members have any other comments as to information they would like to see? Mr. Griffith?
I'd like to see I'd like to see a structural engineer, an architect, and landscaper, so we understand what it is you're actually going to build. I think it will be a concrete structure, and you'll have a structural engineer that'll do it. I don't think it's going to be done by a tennis platform guy. And that will help us to see it. There's insufficient information for us to be able to intelligently review this and have an opinion. I don't have a positive opinion based on just the dimensional information I'm seeing and the size of it. But if you do want to present it, you have to show us what it looks like. And all due respect to the civil engineers That's not what he does. And so that information is missing and is necessary for us to provide an intelligent review. I think that 15 feet above grade is not acceptable. I don't understand. It's a monumental thing in the backyard. It's basically just a big concrete structure up there with some raw earth underneath it draining. Doesn't make any sense to me. If you really want to do it, put stepped retaining walls in the backyard, drain it. You'll have a 10-foot stepped retaining wall in the backyard. Put a planter around the front of it, put natural stone in the planter and arborvitae in the planter, so you screen it with landscape, come in with a serious proposal. And if you really want to turn some heads and get people to pay attention and have grease the tracks for a positive review, put some water underneath it, that collect the water at the back and put the retention basin underneath the court. And then you're hitting all of the buttons that have been mentioned tonight. That's just a casual suggestion. I'm not putting that down as requirements, but the difference between what I'm looking at and what I think you need to do is significant, and I'm trying to give you a good idea as to what that difference is.
I'd also like to see what alternate size and positions are considered and what those calculations come out to see what so we can see the difference in scale of the project and possibilities.
Good point.
Yes, and then just for me, it was just like, I don't know what type of like boot and substratum there is in the front yard or what the groundwater recharge is looking like. I've seen some jobs in like Newark or Plainsfield where they're a bit more robust with the green infrastructure, and like, when I was in one of those like DEP classes or whatever, the inevitable DEP audit is going to happen,
Sure.
eventually, and so just like, maybe putting in a couple like GIMTDs for the quality and just having a little bit more information. Like at this stage, I understand that a lot can be done in compliance, but like at this stage for me, like for my calming effect would just kind of be like just to know that the quantity is being met, given the history of like the disturbance, just showing that for the proposed improvement, and obviously, taking some extra measures for the height and the screening, I think would be good recommendations.
And, there should be a landscaping plan, so rather than just we're going to put in a bunch of evergreens.
Sure.
Okay. So when do you think we don't have to announce anything because you're
They're gonna
renoticing, but
renotice.
just so we have a sense of,
I'm thinking October. I don't think we'd possibly be back in September if the board even has,
okay, just so members of the public know they're going to have to renotice.
October
They'll be
15th.
getting new 200-foot notice. They have to have the plans in at least 10 days in advance. They have to mail. The tricky part of the statute is they have to mail the notice 10 days in advance. Doesn't mean you're getting it 10 days in advance. It means you're getting it less than 10 days in advance. So they do have to do, Alan, I'm assuming you're still going to do newspaper notice?
yes.
So there will be newspaper notice, which you can actually find online. If you put in the right words, you'll be able to find that, besides looking for small legal ads. So that has to appear 10 days in advance, so starting about 2 weeks before start. It's New Jersey Press Association has a website that all legal notices appear, and if you put as keywords Montclair Board of Adjustment and either this address or the name of the applicant, it should pop up once it appears, but it will have to appear 10 days in advance so you know when they're showing up and when you should come in and look at the revised plans, or just show up 10 days in advance and the plan should be here.
Is that sufficient lead time for the plan to be submitted and the engineer to review it also?
Well, we usually require 2 weeks in advance, so the October meeting is October 15th. We would really want to have any changed plans by the end of September, so that we have
Right.
time to review everything.
Well, that's what we'll be targeting, the
So-
October meeting.
Yeah, so it's either the October 15th meeting, and if you don't meet that, then our next meeting is November 5th.
So for members of the public, end of September, you start calling the planning office and see they have plans. Don't make a nuisance of yourself and call, have all of you call, but try and figure out a way of communicating to say, plans are there. Anything else? Okay.
That's it.
Oh,
Well,
Mr. Trump, could you give us an extension of time to, we'll say, the end of
I'm
November?
sure you need
just
it in light of the notice issue, but yes.
through the end of November?
Sure.
Yes.
And then motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So, because they have to renotice, it's still a continuation of this hearing.
Correct, yeah.
So I still have to get the certifications from the board members who were not here.
Yes, yep.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, in order to be able to vote, yeah.
Okay. Long time no see.
And not getting reached.
Nobody's trying. Yeah. I didn't see it, no. Nobody's